Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Start Marketing Podcast. Thanks for joining us. Joe Sanders here, taking you through this. Today, we're going to talk about organizing your social media content. We have a special guest today. We have Xenia Muntean, who is the co-founder and the CEO of Planable. Xenia, how are you? Thanks for being here.
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me on the show.
Yeah, you're welcome. Absolutely. Before we get started, I want to go into the 5 steps that we use as a baseline here to help people improve their digital marketing and their social media strategy. We start with number 1, finding the right audience. Number 2, creating the right content. Number 3, promoting your business as a brand. Number 4, using ample resources. And number 5, analyzing the results. All these 5 steps can be found in a book called Stop Posting, Start Marketing that I wrote. It's on Amazon. You can pick that up. We also break down each one of these steps in previous episodes of our podcast. So go back and listen to those, as well as other interesting topics that we like to present, like today, when we're going to talk about organizing your social media content. So Xenia, organizing your social media content is such a big deal, I think, for people, because I think so many people, when they sit down to do digital marketing, whether they're doing it as somebody who does it full time, or they're doing it as a small business owner just trying to get by, I think it can be really overwhelming to figure out all those different places. Oh my gosh, do I need to be on TikTok and do I need to be on all these different things and what I'm doing? But you guys have a really cool tool, I think, that helps people organize their social media content and helps them strategize. So why don't you tell people a little bit first about yourself and then a little bit about Planable and how that's helping people to organize and strategize, save them time and energy on their social media campaigns.
Yeah, 100%. So before Planable, I was actually running my own social media marketing agency. So I was producing a lot of content for my own clients. And one of the biggest frustrations that I had back then was the entire process of gathering approvals and feedback from clients. Right. It was all happening in this very clunky Excel spreadsheet files, a lot of back and forth on email, those never ending threads where we were, just going ping-ponging feedback from one to another. And it felt like it was, first of all, a considerable, waste of time.
Yeah.
It wasn't very organized. It wasn't very streamlined. And, we could be doing better as an agency. I remember I was telling myself that it wasn't the most modern way of working on content together with my clients and to get feedback and approvals from them. Mm-hmm. So I was searching, for tools, and I didn't find anything that would, really help me plan. There was, a bunch of tools like Buffer and Hootsuite that were really helping me with scheduling and automating the publishing side of social media. But they weren't really helping me with the planning side. That was, very important for me. How can I coordinate social media campaigns in a better way? So that's exactly what I've done. I built Planable to just solve this problem. And, what we do is an environment that is collaborative and an environment that really allows you to plan and to organize your content in a very streamlined way.
Yeah, excellent. Now you say that you created Planable. So this is your product. This is something that you guys developed from scratch?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Cool. Just, scratching our own itch, trying to solve a problem for ourselves.
Very good. No, yeah. I know that strategy is a really important word when it comes to marketing. And I think that can even be a scary word for some people when they say, I do my social media marketing, or I do my postings, as they might say. But having a strategy, I think, is at least what we preach on this podcast and through our different channels and our books and everything. We're always talking about enforcing that you have to have some kind of a marketing strategy. So tell people, what is the importance of having a strategy, and how does Planable help somebody implement a marketing strategy for their digital marketing channels?
Yeah, 100%. I think it's extremely important to have a marketing strategy and to have a way of organizing your content. Because, if you do not know what your goals are, what you're trying to achieve with social media, that is going to, first of all, you're going to have a very unfocused, very cluttered brand, and you're going to be sending very confusing messaging to your audience. So I think, figuring out what you want to do with your social media content and finding a way to organize yourself is very important, because just, planning and creating and executing social media campaigns it takes a lot of time and a lot of effort and a lot of attention every single day. And we're not in the ages of just posting whatever pops into your mind whenever you're hit by inspiration. Those days are long gone. So you have to have a strategy, and you have to have some kind of content calendar for social media that will allow you to plan ahead, that will allow you to create content that is meaningful for your audience in batches in advance, and that will, help you be a bit more focused and a bit more productive with your work. It's not just going to save time and allow you to focus on the important things, like what's your strategy, what you're, building your business, or, thinking about creative new ideas, but it will also help you create and post consistently. Because we know what happens, if you leave social media to be, an ad hoc thing. It usually doesn't happen consistently. So
Right.
That's why, it's extremely important, to have some kind of way to organize it and some kind of, content calendar to plan things in advance.
That's great. Yeah, that's great. One of the big things we always talk about over here when it comes to digital marketing are intentionality and consistency. We believe those are two really important things. And I think void of a calendar or some kind of an organization, I think if you're not prepared, then I think both those things go out the window. Because the first thing that happens when you don't know what kind of content to produce, you sit in front of a computer and you go, oh my gosh, I have to post something today. I have to get Facebook ads. And you end up coming with something that's not very impactful. And you're just kind of coming up with something that's rehashed, or maybe something you're just borrowing from somebody else. It's not very intentional. It's not very well thought out. You didn't really spend the time or energy to come up with that. And the consistency also feels in. I always tell the story about people who, at our agency, will come to us sometimes and they go, hey, I want to write a blog for my website. And I go, okay. Mm-hmm. I'm like, they have no idea whether they want to do that. So what happens is the first thing they do is they write a really nice, 2-page blog with a great picture, and it's wonderful. And they send it to us and we post it for them. We put it on their website. Then 2 weeks later, they send us another blog post, but this time it's 1 page, right? And the graphic's not quite as good. And then not 2 weeks later, but then 3 weeks later, what do we get? We get a paragraph with no picture. And after that, they go, well, I'm just not going to write these anymore. And the reason that they're doing that is because they're not being intentional. They're not, they're putting a blog out there, not because it has something that will impact their business, but just because they think it's a good thing to do. It's not intentional. It's not consistent. It's not strategic. So I really think that sounds like a really cool tool for people to use, because the more time and energy I think you put into strategizing and focusing on what kind of content you should be producing, I think the better kind of content you'll get, which should make a bigger impact on your business. Is that true?
Yeah, and there's also something to say about spotting your weaknesses. Like when you're building a calendar, you have this overview of everything that's happening, everything that you're communicating, right? Like everything on your social, everything on your blog, everything, every single piece of content, it's mapped out. Yeah. And you have this overview, this bird's eye view of tracking and monitoring your weak spots, right? Like what are we not talking about as a brand? What's our weaknesses? How can we improve them? Because that allows you to see everything at a glance. And I think that is extremely important. If you know that you have particular content themes that you as a brand want to talk about, right? Like let's say, you're Nike, right? You talk about sports, you talk about ambition, you talk about grit. You have all those topics that you want to talk about. So a calendar or some kind of way of organizing your content allows you to spot those gaps in your content that you should improve on, and that you should, create more content on.
That's great. You are like, you're in my head. You got to get out of my head, Xenia, because that is exactly what I preach all the time. Have you read my book? Because
no, I didn't. Am I talking off the pages of it?
You are. So if somebody reads my book, I didn't. We did not collaborate on that. It was good. No, but one of the things I'm going to tell you. So when I went through those 5 steps, and I'm not sure how familiar you are with our process here, but the third step that we always take people through is to promote your business as a brand. And one of the exercises that we take all of our clients through, and that we really encourage people who listen to this podcast to do, is to do exactly what you're doing. But this is how we phrase it. We say, think of the 3 things that you want people to think about when they think about your business. Okay. So
I
we
like
say,
that. Yeah.
come up with those 3 things that you want people to think about when they think about business. And then what we tell them to do is write those down and create sort of a brand matrix, because I feel like branding can be this really long, drawn out, sort of heavy process that I think a lot of business owners and marketing people, outside of like some huge companies like Nike and, Coca-Cola and things like that, I get it. But smaller businesses, mid-sized businesses, maybe don't need to focus that much energy on their brand. But if they come up with the 3 things they want people to think about when they think about their business, then what I ask people to do is I say, listen, go back to your digital marketing pages and take those 3 things that you want to communicate and tell me how well you're doing. Have somebody else look at it that's not, that's impartial, and say, what are the 3 things you think of when you look at my digital marketing pages, and then see if those things match up. Now, the trick to this, and this is what I always tell people when they listen to me, and if they will believe me that this is actually an important thing to do, I tell them the best social media content or marketing content you're going to come up with are the days when you don't know what to post. Because if you have a brand matrix, just like what you just said, if you have a brand matrix and you have your 3 things, then what you do when you're stuck is you go through your pages and you look and you say, what is one of these 3 things I haven't put content on it about in a while?
Exactly.
Then when you're sitting in front of that blank computer screen, you don't know what to post, you don't know what to market that day. You go, oh, well, what if I come up with something that has to do with this aspect that I haven't really talked about very often? And you with your program, it looks like we can even take that a step further, where we could balance those 3 things across an entire calendar in a really, really intuitive tool that would really help us promote those things, but as well as really execute them easily and efficiently.
Exactly. Yeah. It's all colored, labeled. You can see, everything at the glance and really, understand where your gaps in terms of content are. So, that's extremely important. And then something else that, another thing is that because you take the time to actually put in all the work and, map it all out, it might save you, from big mistakes. I feel like sometimes when you're writing content ad hoc and you're not, really planning it in advance, mistakes can happen. You might be in a rush, you need to post that thing quick, or you need to react to something real time that's happening, very quickly.
Yeah.
So, small mistakes can happen if you work, like that. But if you plan your posts ahead of time, you can kind of like build, fail safes into your workflow if you organize it like that. So it gives you enough time to double check, to fact check, which is extremely, extremely important nowadays. To have, a second pair of eyes from someone in our team or collaborators to just look at it. And it just giving yourself that additional layer of protection. Maybe, by having someone else look at it, but also by just sleeping on it. If it's a joke that it is, maybe a bit sensitive, you might want to sleep on it and, publish it a bit later. And, having this type of workflow that is organized allows you to potentially avoid some costly mistakes.
Yeah, that's right on. I totally agree with that. And what I was telling you before was the thing that we say over here all the time is stop posting, start marketing. And the reason that I say that, I
love that.
Yeah. Well, the reason I say that is because I feel like a lot of times what people do is they are just posting things. I try, even on this podcast, I try not to say post on your social media. I like to say market things, right? Because there's a big difference between just like you said, taking some filler content and just posting it, as opposed to having an intentional strategic position where you're actually marketing something. And when you're marketing things, you have to take into consideration all the things that may come to pass when the content goes out there. You're right. How will this be? You have to look at that content and say, well, how will this content be interpreted by my audience, right? How would somebody take offense to this? Is the verbiage too long? Is the graphic too big or too busy, or all these different things? Because that's really what you're doing, is you're really marketing things. Not really, this posting thing is really just an action, but marketing is really that overall, idea and functionality of what this all is. So I love the fact that your tool really helps people to avoid this posting back and forth nightmare, which typically, doesn't result in much progress anywhere. It doesn't really benefit your business much. But when you really are marketing something and you're really intentionally doing that over time, that really can make a big impact on your business. So that sounds like that's a really interesting tool. Now, I want to ask you this. So let's take this. So some people out there have never used scheduling software before, or they've never used a tool like you mentioned, like Hootsuite or Sendable or one of these other things. Mm-hmm. How would what would you say to somebody who might be considering using any kind of a scheduling software tool that's never done that before? What are those immediate benefits that you think they're going to get just by switching from their going to those platforms every day to using some kind of an organizational scheduling tool?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, saving time, 100%, mm-hmm. Peace of mind, because you have it planned for a month or a week in advance, so it just gives you a lot of room to just think about other stuff. Whilst if you're publishing on the go, if you're marketing on the go,
thank you, very good.
Yes, if you're marketing on the go. Very ad hoc, then there's a lot of anxiety to it. What am I gonna promote today? What am I gonna write about today? So I think peace of mind is what's extremely important. It is the thing that really helps you with, mm-hmm. And just saving time. Really, you schedule it all. You look at it. You edit it a few times. You revise it, and then it's just good to go. Especially if you market to audiences, to global audiences, and you have like tricky hours mm-hmm. in the middle of the night, that kind of stuff. It really helps out with that.
That's kind of like what we're doing here, because it's 10 o'clock where I am, and what time is it where you are?
Yeah, 5 p.m.
It's 5 p.m. So that's yeah. So I guess if I was marketing something in your country or vice versa, we would really need something to keep us moving, because I was traveling around the last couple of weeks. I can't keep time zones even in my own country straight. So that would be a benefit. Now, let me ask you this. When you're using Plannable, we're using Plannable. It's Plannable.io, right? That's
yes,
what this is. Okay.
Yes.
So when you're using that, does this work with all social media and digital marketing platforms?
So it works with the big four ones, with Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Instagram. And now we're looking at, we recently added Google My Business for the local brands out there that are big on Google My Business. And then we're looking at adding some other ones. We're looking at YouTube, Pinterest, TikTok, potentially. Yeah. But the four big ones and Google My Business as well are, supported.
Now, the organization of this and the planning and everything and the posting is the same functionality on, let's just use Facebook, for example. If you're using Plannable, because let me say this before I ask you this question. We use a planning software as well, and it's fabulous. And just like all the things that you said that happen when you use some kind of an organizational scheduling software tool, it's totally true. You save time. You save frustration, you save energy. I mean, it's so efficient and everything good. Now, I honestly, I haven't used your tool before, so I'm just going to ask straight up. But the tool that we use doesn't have all the capabilities that the social media site has. Like, it can't do everything that Facebook can do. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I mean, I get that. Facebook is changing their stuff all the time. So just using like Facebook and Instagram, for example, if somebody is going to use Plannable, what functions can they do on Facebook and Instagram through Plannable that are like the biggest things that they're going to find the benefit for? What are those functions that it works with on that?
Yeah, it supports the majority of the formats of posts on Facebook and the other platforms. Where it gets tricky is with formats that are a bit more on the cutting edge, right? Like 360-degree, photos and videos and Canva maybe, and that kind of stuff. Right. So it gets tricky with things that are a bit more cutting edge and probably not used by all marketers. But if you're someone that relies heavily on polls for Twitter or, formats like that are a bit more, not the most mainstream formats, then, it might be tricky with those ones on Plannable.
Sure.
The issue is with with the APIs, the other platforms in the space similarly to ours, are struggling with the APIs and the technology that Facebook puts out there. Not everything is available to be done through a third-party app. But the majority, I would say, the majority and the most mainstream things, like scheduling and publishing videos and images and carousel posts and links and all of that stuff is available in the platform. So if you're not doing some, very on the, emerging stuff, then you should probably be fine.
Now, the scheduling tool that we use is maybe, it doesn't sound like it's quite as advanced as the one that you're using. So maybe I got to switch over to you. But what about like when it comes to like boosting posts, creating ads, and running those to the platform? So does your platform do all the things that like Facebook Ads Manager and like all the Instagram ads stuff? Does it do all that as well, or is that separate?
So we mostly focus on the reviewing and collaboration part when it comes to ads. So you can like plan, collaborate, discuss, approve ads for Facebook and Instagram, but we don't go as far as actually deploying them or publishing them from Plannable, because that would take us into a completely different territory, optimizing budgets. We don't want to go in the space of, being a media buyer, media company, ads advert optimization tool. So we, focus solely on the planning and, collaborating and reviewing part of the ads. And
I'll say that, again, I think the tool that you're describing sounds better than the one I'm using, but but I'm saying that that's what we do too. And it still saves me a ton of time and a ton of energy. Even though the platform we use as well, we do have to go back to the source to do our ads campaigns and things like that. But having the ability to stay organized with everything, it's such a time saver, and I think it would be like a total benefit. So for some people who may be using like Facebook's publishing tools or something like that, where they're using some of those Creator Studio and they're using things. What are the benefits of what if I just said to you, well, I could go into Facebook and I could schedule a post. I could just go in there and schedule a post. I know how to do that. Or I could go into Twitter. I know how to schedule a post. What would you say to somebody who's like, well, is that really all your platform can do? Then what have you, because I'll tell you, I've used a lot of third-party apps and companies in my career that work really well with Facebook and Instagram and Twitter. And most of the time, I say 99% of the time, the things that people are creating like you are so much better than what Facebook does. So how does that work? How does that,
that's a very legit question. And, if all you're doing is publishing on Facebook and it's just you, one-man show, and you don't have anyone else to collaborate, and the volume of content is not that much, you're probably fine with the Creator Studio. You don't need, a tool, because it does the scheduling, it does the publishing, it gives you analytics and all of that stuff. Where it starts to get tricky is when there's multiple people involved in the process, because the Creator Studio is not collaborative at all. You can have multiple people going into it, but there's no way of exchanging feedback or no approval system. The calendar is pretty new, so it doesn't have a lot of features. The planning option is not that sophisticated yet, because it's a new module in the Creator Studio. And then it's just Facebook and Instagram, so it doesn't have LinkedIn, Twitter, or Google My Business or the other platforms. So you'd have to use them separately natively, and you wouldn't have any overview across all the content that you're marketing out there on social. So it's really about how many people are involved and how many channels and the volume of content. The more you're marketing, the more people are involved in the process, the more complex and the more difficult it gets to do it with the native tools. Yeah.
So Plannable really, like I said, I'll say it again. It sounds like really something that I should be looking at, because it sounds like
you should.
Sounds like you've really designed this for heavy hitters. Like you've really designed this for like heavy hitter, professional people that are really this is they're grueling it out every day, trying to get all this stuff done. So that's interesting, because I think a lot of the tools because when we decided to use the tool we use, we went through a whole bunch of different ones. And I was really surprised as to how sort of, lax in a lot of areas that they were. They weren't as robust or as powerful, maybe is the word, that I would needed them to be. And so we decided on one that we use, and I do like it. But it sounds like from your history of what you've done and the clients you've worked with in the past, that you really designed something for digital marketing professionals who are really looking to get a leg up in that world. So
100%. Yeah, it's all about content planning and collaboration. That's our bread and butter.
Very good. Now, we always like to get a little practical on this podcast, and
yes.
So one of the things I'm going to ask you is, now what would you describe you're a marketing professional, obviously, but would you consider yourself like a content marketing expert or something along those lines? Is that how you define your...
In some way, I mean, I wouldn't say I am the expert on this subject, but I have learned quite a lot from our own customers while building Plannable. So I know a thing or two.
All right. Well, you're not maybe not the expert, but you're an expert.
Yeah.
Obviously. So
yes.
Okay. Well, I'd say the same thing about me. I was speaking at an event one time, and somebody introduced me as a social media guru.
Ooh.
And I almost I was so mad. Got up there and I said, dude, no,
that says the expectation is very high.
I know. I'm like, I am not a guru. I'm a marketing person. That's what I do. Yes. I do marketing for a living. Anyway.
Exactly.
So, and just real quick. So what would you say? What like nugget of advice could you give somebody who said, look, I don't really understand. I know I got to have stuff on my digital marketing channels, the content and stuff. If I had no idea where to begin a content marketing strategy, like what's a practical, one or two things somebody can do to get started in content marketing on digital marketing channels? Like what advice would you give to them? I mean,
just learning a bit more about the industry, exposing themselves, looking at what other brands in their industries, in their industry are doing, or brands and industries that are relevant to their one. Yeah. And then just learning, reading everything they can get their hands on, Social Media Explorer, Social Media Today, our own blog at Plannable, everything they could get their hands on about digital marketing and social media, so that they can, go a bit deeper into this. Every time when you have this subject or this topic that you can't seem to wrap up your mind around it, or that seems like, you don't agree about it, but you don't have enough knowledge about it at the same time, I think you need to go deeper. Yeah. Because, at the moment it's just an assumption. So learning and then looking at what others in the industry are doing, and, potentially getting in touch with someone else that is, doing this for, other marketers that are doing it, and learning about, how they think about it, what metrics are they looking at, what results, what ROI are they getting out of it. Yeah. So chatting with someone, learning about this and observing.
That's good. And you said the magic word, you said relevant, right?
Yeah.
That's our company is called Relevant Elephant.
Yes.
We tell people seriously, because the reason we started that, we called the company that is because early on when we were doing this, it was just some dumb name we came up with, but people are asking me, they're like, oh, how did you come up with that name? I think that's okay. I said, it's really, first of all, it was available. So that's one. But the second reason I said, most of the clients we talk to, they're not relevant in their industry. Like they're just, they're not, they're just out there like throwing, any kind of content out there that they can find. They have no strategy. They don't know who they're marketing to. They don't know how to analyze it. They don't know how to interpret it, all those kinds of things. So we call our company Relevant Elephant, and for the same reasons that you mentioned before. And I think those are two really good pieces of advice. Yeah. I mean, obviously if you don't know what you're doing and you're worried about it, I mean, I always tell people, get out there and try it, make some mistakes, fail a little bit, but certainly educating yourself on this is huge. Talking to somebody, maybe to you or somebody like me or somebody else about this, and just kind of, and I love the fact that you said, look at what your competition is doing. That's probably the best place to start. If you feel like you want to get out there into the industry and you want to do something with your business on digital marketing and you don't know what to do, well, steal from somebody else, you know?
Yeah, get some inspiration.
That guy wrote a book called Steal Like an Artist, right? And he kind of, I forget that guy's name, I don't know if you read that, but he wrote a book and he kind of...
Yeah, I know about it, yeah.
Yeah, it was a great book. And he was like, hey, you know what? There's really no original ideas here. Everything that you can come up with
is a remix. Yeah.
A little bit there, a little bit there. So it's great. Well, hey, I really appreciate you coming on the podcast today. So
Thank you.
It's plannable.io, right?
Yes, that's correct. Yes.
And that's great. And so, and what else do you want to plug? Anything else while you're on here? You guys have a blog. Do you have anything else you want to plug in the last minute we have here?
Yeah. I think we had a coupon for your audience, if I'm not mistaken. Okay. Yes. Yeah, we do.
We have a coupon.
Yes, it's called Start Marketing 30.
Okay.
And it's a coupon for 30% off for 3 months of any paid plan on Plannable. Yeah. Very so if you want to give it a try, after everything we've spoken, if you want to see it for yourself, you can use Start Marketing 30.
Very good. Well, great. Well, if you're interested in that, please reach out to us. You can find us on Facebook. You can find us at relevantelephant.net. You can find us on Instagram, LinkedIn. Shoot us a message. We'll be happy to send you over the promo code. We can get you in touch with the folks over at plannable.io. It sounds like a great deal. So thanks again for being with us. Folks, you guys haven't subscribed to our podcast yet, please do. I'm sure there's a button somewhere on your page that says subscribe now, whether Apple, Spotify, or whatever. Please subscribe. We like to put out this content as often as we can. Again, it's been a pleasure. We appreciate you guys spending the time with us today to learn a little bit more about marketing. And as always, I always like to say, stop posting, start marketing.